Dee, have you noticed we have gotten some of the nicest emails from listeners this week?
We have shout out to Lana. She walks while she listens, and she got back to a walking program.
And shout out to Angela. She says she lives up in somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. I can't remember exactly. She says the way I talk reminds her of her grandmother from Kansas.
That's sweet.
That is sweet.
And a special hello to it's Marcia or Marcia, who sent us a very touching email.
She did. And then, of course, friend of the show, Teresa Byington, sent us some nice kudos.
Very sweet. We appreciate all of these touch notes and all of our listeners. Thank you all.
We sure do. But before we get all twisted up, patting ourselves on the back, and let's get started on a new episode. Do it.
Let's do it. Welcome to the Garden Angelus, where we talk about flowers, veggies, and all the best dirt. I'm Dee Nash from Guthrie, Oklahoma, where I garden on 1.5 acres out of 7.5 acres in the country.
And I'm Carol Michael from Indianapolis, Indiana. I have a suburban garden measured in square feet. It's about 1/3 of an acre.
We call ourselves Garden Angelists because we are evangelists for gardening. We love gardening, and we want you to love it too.
Yes, we do. And we aren't afraid to spill the beans and tell all of our gardening secrets, the good, the bad, and even the ugly. But that's enough of who, what, when, where. It's time for another episode, Dee.
Hello, Carol. How does your garden grow?
My garden. So we recorded last week on Thursday, and that's Friday. So that's a big stretch.
Yeah, because last week we were like 4 days between and we were going, huh?
Nothing much happened. Anyway, I've mowed twice since we last spoke, and I pulled out 2 bags of weeds and some dried up green beans and some of the annuals that have kind of pooped out, like the zinnias down by the mailbox were looking terrible. So they have been disposed of. I also told you I was going to collect seeds from Verbena Bampton, and I did that. And
they are so tiny.
So tiny. So I just kind of rubbed along the flower things and dropped it into an envelope. And I thought, I hope this isn't all chaff and that there's some seeds in here.
You know what? It'll be what it'll be, right?
Yeah. It's the cost of an envelope to seal it in. Inside, my cuttings are doing well. I talked about those last week. The poinsettia, as you can see, I'm going to point to it, has been moved into the south exposure of this room. So now, Dee, I know you're going to be thrilled. Poinsettia Watch has begun. Weekly updates for you and our listeners. Is that thing blooming? And are the bracts changing to red?
We'll see. Yeah, I'm waiting. I'm waiting with bated breath. What does that even mean?
I don't know, but I went to Aldi a couple of times this week, and I found an expanding leaf rake, those kind that you can move the thing out and it makes it narrow or wide. And I always wanted one. It's like $10. I'm like, oh, I'm buying that. And then they had this bag that's got like this half hoop. So it's a side entry and you can rake stuff into it. And I thought, oh, I'm buying that for $5.
Yeah. Okay.
Might as well. Anyway.
Aldi's home.
Aldi finds. Anyway, I also got the email, which I knew was coming because I saw they charged my credit card for the bulbs that I ordered. And so they should be coming today. The UPS men should be dropping them off. So that was my week in the garden. How about you, Dee?
Did you know I've already gotten some of my bulbs from Eden Brothers?
Yes.
So I stuck them in the fridge, in the bag. We'll see what happens. They're not around any fruit, so they should be fine. And they're in a paper bag too. Let's see. I moved almost everything into the greenhouse that's tender. And Linda Vodder and I decided to postpone our visit, thank God, because my garden feels like it's just collapsing in on itself this past week.
Yes. And I know the feeling.
I've got armadillos still digging. If anybody has any armadillo tips, I'm all for them. The only thing we've caught is a baby opossum, and I think we keep catching the same one. And bless his little heart or her heart, I don't know. We just
waits until you let her out, right?
Yeah, they do play possum. They lay there like they're dead, which makes me laugh. And so we're going to try to do the garden tour next June. We'll see. I'm sorry, everyone.
Wait a minute. Back to the opossum.
Yeah.
Since you seem to be catching the same one, can we name her?
Sure. Let's name her whatever you want to name her. I don't care.
Oh gosh, I haven't thought about what to name a possum, just that it should be named. I'll think
Yeah,
about it.
because it's the same little baby. I swear it is. And then I watered and thinned my kale, my radishes, and my turnips. I did not get beets planted. I don't have any beet seeds, and I wasn't going to go buy any. And then let's see, I ordered some seeds from Eden Brothers because they had zinnia seeds on sale. And then I gathered seeds or saved seeds from the Tide Pool mix from
Uh-huh.
Siskiyou seeds. And I saved some from my Oklahoma salmon, that great big Oklahoma salmon one I have, so that I could send it to our friend. And so I'm going to do that. And then let's see. Is there anything else? Oh, Beth Teal has a good idea about the armadillos. She's doing it for squirrels. She's taking pieces of chicken wire and putting it between her new plantings and putting it
Uh-huh.
down with stakes because if they
Yeah.
feel that rough stuff, they won't dig it up. I figure it's worth a try because I only have two little spots of pansies because they've been digging everything up. And
Right, right, right.
they have dug up those same pansies about 4 times. So they're just pillaging on. And then I spoke in Enid. Thank you to the master gardeners. Thanks to the beekeeper who gave me honey. He lives in Mustang. I'm sorry I didn't get the honey out to tell you the name of the beekeeper. Also, the master gardener who made us ink pens. They're beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah, that
Wow,
was
that's nice.
nice. And then I garden coached in Tulsa on Monday. I've been very busy. And while I was running around, like at the Master Gardener Conference, I bought a philodendron gloriosum, which has these great big leaves and they're
Uh-huh.
green, dark green with white veins. And then
Beautiful.
went by Walmart to buy some more of my organic potting mix that has chicken manure. And I kept smelling something. And I was like, why are there scented pine cones in the gardening section? Well, there weren't. It took me 2 trips to figure it out. I just put on my mask. It's they're in the mums, but they're not scented pine cones. They're scented cinnamon sticks.
I saw that and I reached out to some of our garden communicating buddies and I said, "What's
Why?
with the what's with the mums being scented?" And apparently the tag on there says it's to give your front porch the whole experience so that it smells like pumpkin chai latte in addition to mums. I'm
It
like,
just smells like the fake cinnamon brooms at TJ Maxx or Trader Joe's. That's what it smells
yes.
like. And so I like my mums to smell like mums. I'm tired of these ploys to get us to buy more, and I didn't see them flying off the shelves. So
Yeah.
I walked away from them. I was actually going to buy some, and I walked away.
Well, the reason there two reasons there would a reason they would do it is because scent is the most powerful thing as far as emotions and reminds you of stuff. And if you smell that cinnamon, blah, 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 you might think, oh, it's fall. I need my mom's.
Don't bake some muffins.
The other thing is the reason they're not flying off the shelf is I don't think they were that big a mom and they were $16.
They were really, really expensive. I sent you a picture of the tag. So that was bizarre. And I think that's my week. It was busy.
Quite the week. So let's play favorites.
Okay, mine's easy. My 2 new house plants.
Yes.
The other house plant I bought was Pink Princess philodendron from Walmart. Anyway, what about you?
So I'm going to say that my favorite, I'm going to go back to an old favorite, Verbena bonariensis vanity. We got the
Great
seeds
plant.
2 years ago from All America Selections. It's self-sowed out here, and that thing is just blooming like crazy. It has no idea that winter's coming. It's just like whistling a happy little tune and drawing in butterflies, and I love it. I want it to keep
Mhm.
self-sowing. I might even have to go buy some seeds just to be sure, but that's my favorite.
Or you could just sprinkle your seeds, on the ground from the spent blooms because it produces a ton of seeds. Okay, our question of the week while you take a sip of water. Why are my container plants dying even though I water them every day?
There could be myriad reasons for this.
Yeah, but it's in the question. The main thing. You do not need to water your house plants every day.
Wait a minute. You said it says container plants.
Oh, I thought they were houseplant container
No,
plants. See,
no,
my
container
mind is
plants.
on houseplants today. Container plants in general, well, it depends on where you live. And it depends on, because here you do have to water them every day and in the middle of summer. But as I actually turned off my drip irrigation to the back deck because it was overwatering now. And I just hand water as I need to now. That's one thing. So it could be that, it could be extreme heat.
Well, let me give you a couple of ideas that I have.
Okay.
Number one, certain things like petunias, they just kind of peter out at the end of the season.
They
So
do,
that could
even
be
if you
just
cut
like,
them back.
yeah, it just could be they're done. The
Sure.
other problem could be that if you overplanted that container and everybody's fighting in there, some of the stuff may just won't win the battle. And so it'll just die out. And then, like you said, if you put stuff in the bottom of that container so you didn't have to put as much soil, you
Bad
could actually
idea.
be holding more water than you think. And so your soil, maybe the top little layer is dry and it looks like water, but if you go down maybe an inch, it might be just super soaked. So
And
check to see
moldy.
you're not overwatering it.
Yeah. Also, if you have a saucer under your plant, under your container, sometimes that can hold too much water. And sometimes things just die. And my attitude is if you want something in fall and you still got a lot of fall left, just go buy a little mum or something and put in there. Put some pansies in there for where the petunias were.
Right. Now I
Dress it
will I
back
will
up.
warn I will warn people about pansies and violas in the fall, and I rarely have this problem in the spring. There is a rot that just causes them to rot, and if they get way too much water. And the trick is with the high temperatures, they need some water, but you don't want to overwater them because they'll rot. And I had a couple that rotted off, and I always do, but then several of them just don't. So
Did you
it's worth the
know
gamble.
I have never had a pansy rot? I think it's too dry here.
I think it's probably too dry there, but I've had them where they
I believe you.
pansy rot, but it's not a big
Sometimes,
issue for me.
here's another thing. Sometimes stuff just dies.
Yeah, sometimes that plant didn't try hard enough.
That's right. The biggest laugh I got at my talk was if something looks ugly in the garden, just look at another direction, look at something else. And people
Yeah.
started laughing because honestly, that's the truth. Right now, my Baptisia looks like pure hell. I'll take a picture of it for our newsletter. I don't care. I just want to show people that it doesn't matter how good you are at this, stuff dies.
Yeah. So, but let's talk about stuff that's not dying.
Let's.
I'll do the quote and then we'll talk about our flower topic.
Okay.
And Autumn did say, why the hurry? Such a hurry. Why such haste to end the day? Slow down, I say. Look around, for there's so much beauty just waiting to be found. And that is from Little Thoughts by Athie Thompson.
I like it. It's pretty.
I like it too. Slow down, slow down, slow down. It's in the 40s this morning, low 40s.
Really?
Yeah.
Here it was in the 60s. But
Yeah.
they've been getting down in the 50s up in the tri-state area, which is Kansas, Missouri,
Well,
and
I was watching
Arkansas.
Instagram from a guy up by Cleveland who was covering for frost
Oh,
last night.
I
Woof.
guess really that's the four-state area because you got to add Arkansas in there too. That wouldn't be fair. Yeah, up in that little corner, it gets pretty chilly. And also out west in the Panhandle, it gets chilly there too because the nights are so dry. Hey, before we talk about flowers, did you see the Northern Lights?
No,
I didn't
I'm
either,
in the
but
city.
everyone around here saw them, but it was really cloudy at my house, and I imagine that didn't matter. But my daughter showed up, so I hung out with her. So let's
Very
talk
nice.
about our flowers. Yeah, my son showed up too. It was quite the evening.
Nice.
Surprise, surprise.
So I decided we should talk about fothergilla, the shrub. And you says, well, I can't grow them. And so I'm like, can we still talk about them?
Sure, a lot of people here do grow them. What I actually said was, "Oh, I've killed that twice." Okay, go ahead.
Oh, well, so I decided when I saw fothergilla fall color on
Uh-huh.
on a catalog cover, I said, I must have this in my garden because it literally has every fall color that you can imagine in the leaves.
They're pretty.
Gold, orange, purplish, red. So it's a really beautiful fall foliage shrub. And so I will tell you that it's in a very small genus, as I found out. There's only like 4 species in this genus of fothergilla in the witch hazel family.
I was going to say that has to be the witch hazels. Yeah, Himalace,
Yeah.
Sedaceae.
Hamamelidaceae.
ACA.
Yeah, that one.
That one.
The
It's hard.
the common name for fothergilla is witch alder.
Uh-huh.
And so I did look at the October, November 2002 issue of The Gardener and in an article written by Carol Bishop Miller. And there's two funny things in there. Not funny.
Okay.
Well, here's a historical thing. She says it was introduced to cultivation in 1765 by Charleston physician and botanist Alexander Garden, for whom this species or the genus Gardenia is named.
Interesting.
So Fothergilla gardeniae enjoyed instant acceptance, if not actual stardom. Gardeners on both sides of the Atlantic were taken by the shrub's honey-scented white flowers and incendiary autumn foliage. Incendiary.
Yeah, I like that. Pretty.
Both George Washington and Thomas Jefferson included the plant in their gardens.
Where's that from? Oh, it's
This
native.
is the gardener. Yeah, it's a native plant.
It's a native plant to southeastern U.S.
Yes. It likes...
I think, yeah. This is why I can't grow it.
Yeah. It likes wetter soils. It likes woodland soils. It can grow in sun, but you do need to make sure that it's well watered. Yeah. And so I looked up, and Proven Winners has two hybrids available. Both Legends of the Smalls is the Fothergilla gardenia hybrid, and Legend of the Fall is also a hybrid that gets bigger. So it probably has the Fothergilla major, which is the bigger one in it.
Probably.
But here's another funny thing from this article. They don't write them like they used to, Dee. Even 20 some years ago. She says, most familiar of the recent introductions of Fothergillas perhaps is Blue Mist, a Morris Arboretum selection of Fothergilla gardeniae, noted for its frosty blue summer foliage. So it has a bluish green tint to it. Though high-strung catalog writers extol the wonders of the cultivar's fall coloration, user reports rank its end of season display as anemic.
Wow.
High-strung catalog writers.
That's
anemic
funny.
Foliage. Anyway.
I like it.
Yeah. So it does have a nice bloom on it, and it looks like a bottle brush because I've got one.
Yep.
And I actually had three, but I'm down to one because I moved them, blah, blah, blah. It's over there on the garage side of the house.
They're actually a proven selection in Oklahoma, one of the Oklahoma proven, but it says connoisseur plant. It's part of the connoisseur plant group. And I'm like,
which means fussy?
Fussy. They're fussy. And they like it a little bit acidic, and our soil is alkaline. So if you're going to grow it, you need to grow it in like you would azaleas. You know, it needs to have acidic soil. So
right. And if you're going to fertilize it, go find an acidic plant fertilizer. They're labeled that way.
Azalea rhododendron type fertilizers. They are good for that. You could also add sulfur to it.
So here's the thing that I also found is it blooms on last year's growth, so on old wood.
Right.
And so if you prune late in the season, you might cut off some of those flower buds. So whoops, because I'm looking on the Monrovia site, and they said thrives in organically rich, slightly acidic, moist, well-drained soils. That is true. Water deeply, regularly during the first growing season to establish an extensive root system. Also true. Feed regularly during the growing season. I don't think you do. Once it's established, it's fine. Here's where I disagreed with them. They said prune annually in late winter to promote vigorous growth. Oh, no. No. You'll cut off all your flowers.
Yeah, you'll cut off the little flowers, which that's part of the point, unless they're just growing it for foliage. But you should grow it for both, because then you would help pollinators.
Well, and everybody says it's a honey-scented flower. And yes, it is an early blooming plant. So it blooms before the leaves come out. So it does help pollinators because it's out there when other stuff aren't blooming. But here's the thing. I think you could put it in a wooded area. Your fall color is going to vary depending on how much sun it gets through the year, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
So the other question people have is, are deer going to eat it?
They'll eat anything if they're really hungry. But it's not their favorite.
It says
right?
only when other food is scarce. And so I wrote, I guess it's like that forgotten can of Spam way in the back of the cabinet. If you are desperate, you may eat it, but otherwise, apparently the leaves have a bitter taste, so nothing eats it really, and it's not toxic. So they also said if you have kids who are prone to eat shrubs in your garden, this they won't get past a bitter taste.
That's funny. Okay, well, I know what we're going to talk about next week. So you and I can discuss that afterwards.
Okay.
We could do a whole series on flowering shrubs that have great fall color
Okay. Let's
with
do
with an emphasis on natives.
let's do the next quote before you give away next week's topic. Unless you have some other native shrubs you want to talk about this week.
Nope. Here we go. Oh, hush, October, morning mild, thy leaves have ripened to the fall. Tomorrow's wind, if it be wild, should waste them all. Oh, hushed October morning mild, begin the hours of this day slow. Make the day seem to us less brief. At noon, release another leaf. Retard the sun with gentle mist. Enchant the land with amethyst. That's October by Robert Frost.
Yes. And so I don't think October is exactly like that in your garden, but it wasn't he out east somewhere, like in the Northeast, it's probably full on fall.
Yeah, but you know what? The leaves are starting to fall here, partly because there's no water, so they're shedding their leaves. And I'm watching them fall. But it's October, so they'll release anyway. I did have a misty morning on Saturday. And by the way, if people start to hear background music, there are two guys outside washing my windows and they have some music on. So you're not
That's
crazy
fine.
if you're walking and hear a touch of music. So I did have a misty morning and I went out there and kind of danced around in the vegetable containers because it was nice.
Very nice. I have not had a misty morning. There's heavy dew in the morning, but I have not had we are in need of rain again.
We are too. We had just a little bit that one day, but it wasn't even measurable. So, for our vegetable topic, you came up with an idea and you said that you didn't think it was that good. I think it's a great idea.
All
These are
right.
questions that we get asked regularly about vegetable gardening. So, I'm going to ask you the first question. Are you ready?
Yes.
Question number one. Do you like raised beds? Do you prefer raised beds or in ground?
I prefer raised beds. I will admit I was brought up on an in-ground vegetable garden. We had to get the tiller out every spring and find a dry period and get that thing rototilled up. But if you are in a suburban area like I am and you want an easier way, raised beds is definitely the way to go.
I actually prefer the same. I like raised beds, or I like things like my Vago garden beds. I like those. And the reason I like them is they're just easier. You don't have to bend over as far. You don't have to till. I would say that in ground gardens are kind of a young woman's game. I really
Well,
would.
if you are into homesteading and you have a big garden, and you're
Or you're
you're
going to
growing a
can.
bunch to can, you do need a fairly sizable garden, and that's where I wouldn't go with the Vago beds like you have. But here's the other thing.
No,
When I have in ground, remember mine are just 6 inches off the ground. And so they have paths, and then I've put landscape powder down in the paths. And so it was kind of pricey to set it up, but I would rather do that than get out there and have to till it every year.
well, there's very little maintenance and you don't get as many weeds. There's a lot of reasons to prefer raised beds over in ground. But like you said, if you're growing enough food to put up in your pantry for winter, then you probably want to grow in ground because you can plow up the North 40, which I used to do. Some people till, some people use a broad fork, some people layer. There's lots and lots of ways to garden, frankly.
You could also do both, and I have to find this note that I had made. I asked my aunt once to describe the vegetable gardens at the old family farm in southern Indiana. And they had two vegetable gardens. They had one up by the house where they put like the lettuces and stuff that you would go out and just cut a little bit and bring it in to eat. And then
Yeah.
further back behind a barn, they had the big in-ground garden where they had corn and rows of peas and things like that. So
And green beans and all of that kind of
you
thing.
could do
Okra.
something like that, put some raised beds closer to your kitchen for the grab and go vegetables, and then have a bigger garden somewhere, like you said, further out where you're going to grow stuff to, really harvest it all at once.
Well, and herbs too, because, if you're going to cut herbs for dinner, it's a whole lot easier to do it just right by your house.
Sure is.
And also, I talk about this a lot with my garden coaching clients. And I'm like, the closer you put it to the house, the more you're going to work in it. It
Exactly.
just is the truth. Okay, so number 2, do you have to cover a vegetable garden with leaves in the fall, or can you leave the ground bare?
You know what? Here's the thing. You can do whatever you want. What you want to do is avoid weeds overwintering
Right.
in your garden. And you also want to make sure you're doing something to replenish that soil, especially if you're growing in the same area over and over, which most of us are in those same raised beds. That's why I like to layer over, like clear off the weeds, layer over with crushed up leaves from the lawn so that something is on that soil so it's not just bare and ready for the weeds.
And you've also done cover crops too,
I have.
where
I had. They're a lot of work, Dee. They're a lot of work. No, not a
they
lot.
are a lot of they're more work than compost
Yeah.
or leaves. So I either put shredded leaves on my beds or I put compost, and that's about it. I'm watching the poor window washer guy who's a friend of ours. He's crawling around in my beds trying to get to the windows, and of course there are roses, and so he's so
Yeah.
patient. God love him. All right, so I have an additional question. What do you think about crop rotation?
Well, I think crop rotation is an excellent idea, Dee. If you have a large enough garden to do that, like you talked about, even you have multiple Vago beds. So the one that had tomatoes this year will have green beans next year, et cetera, et cetera. If you can do it, I mean, you do two things. It avoids some of the disease and insect pressures from growing in the same spot. And also vegetables use different nutrients. So, where you grew beans, they're actually helping the soil. Where you're growing corn, they're just sucking the life out of the soil. So rotating is an
Yes.
excellent idea.
Yeah, I think rotating and I think companion plants are both great ideas. And I think it also applies to flowers.
Yes.
And I wrote a garden blog post last night on my blog, and it was about zinnias. Of course it was. And in it, I talked about how I've kind of planted zinnias in the same place forever. And I forgot one of the cardinal rules, which is you should move them around. And so something kept eating them. They just kept dying. And I was like, what the heck? So I, in desperation, moved them to a totally different spot, and they sprung up and the critters didn't know where they were and stuff like that. So
Good deal.
number 4, because I changed it on you.
Number
What
3.
vegetables? It's number 4 because I asked an additional question.
Oh,
in there.
okay. Now it's really going to get confusing from our notes. Okay. 3 is now 4.
No, it's not. Yeah. What vegetables do you avoid growing?
Well, I generally don't grow anything that's a cruciferous like cabbage, broccoli. I've never really tried cauliflower. I've tried Brussels sprouts, but I'm telling you, those white cabbage butterflies and those little green worms, it doesn't matter. They will find it, and I don't want to cover.
Yeah.
So I'm
you
just
don't want to use
gonna
row
go.
covers.
I buy organic at the store, though. Gosh, Dee, have you ever priced organic cabbage at the store? Lordy.
Yes, because that's all I buy, because they use a lot of pesticides on cold crops.
$2.99 a pound.
Oh, I'm telling you, I priced organic chicken yesterday, and it was astronomical too. And we were
Anyway.
just in a grocery. I can see why you might homestead right now.
Exactly.
So you're not a big cold crop person.
No. How about you?
I bet you can guess. I bet you can guess what I don't grow. I don't grow a lot of cold crops either, because same thing, a lot, although I am growing Brussels sprouts right now for just fun, and kale, because I was hopeful it'd get a little cooler and it would stop the moths. No, I'm still having trouble with them.
I know exactly what you don't grow. I even put it in the show notes for you.
You did. Summer squash. I don't grow it very much. Every once in a while, I'll still try. I did it this year. I got 3 squash. That was not enough for the amount of work I put into it.
No, and the space
All
that
right.
it takes.
What do you keep growing, but probably isn't worth it to you to keep growing it? I know what you were going to say before you wrote it.
Yeah, it's sweet corn. Sweet corn is wind pollinated, so you need a block of corn, not a row. And I always put a nice little like 4x8 block. I do get some decent pollination, but I never get enough to amount to much, an ear or two. And those raccoons find it every single year. And it's like, this is probably not worth it. So
No,
remind me in the spring that it's not worth it to plant sweet corn.
I'm not going to do that because you get such joy out of it. So I say just plant it and hit the tops of the stalks so that you get really good pollination.
Well, I get good pollination now. It's the raccoons.
Yeah, they're a drag. They ate all of my corn. I quit. And pinto beans. One year I had corn, pinto beans, and not winter squash, but cantaloupe as the three sisters that year. And it was beautiful. I mean, and this was in ground, folks. This is back when I did that. It was beautiful. The moment, that any of that became viable, those suckers were in there and it was gone in a day.
What do you grow that you don't think is worth it for you?
Probably eggplant, because eggplant takes so many plants to produce enough eggplant. And the tree, although the Asian eggplants do produce faster. And this year, Bianca was fabulous, which is an Italian small eggplant. It's really high histamine. And since I've got this issue, I'm trying not to eat as many high histamine vegetables. So I probably won't grow eggplant next year unless we figure out something better in the meantime. It's a nightshade.
Yes. And the final question is seeds or plants?
It all depends.
It all depends. There is no shame in buying your eggplants, tomato plants, pepper plants instead of starting them from seed. Now, we may make fun of you and we may think we're all high and mighty because we're starting ours from seed, but there's no shame. Really, there's no shame.
No, there's no shame. In fact, sometimes I also buy them because, and in fact, this year I bought a tomato plant late because I could see that my other plants were getting diseased. And that plant has produced and produced and produced. It has green tomatoes on it right now and orange ones. They're
Very
getting ready
nice.
to bring in, which it's also a nightshade and I shouldn't eat it, but my granddaughter loves them. All right. So, one caveat, just plant your green beans from corn, green beans from seed and your corn from seed.
Right.
For
And
sure.
and squash and cucumber, I've
I'd grow
bought in
from
the
seed.
plant. I've bought in the plant before when it was something unusual or whatever, but it's so easy to start the seeds.
So, especially in our long climate. Okay. Oh, you had another question.
The one final question is when should I buy my seeds? And I would say if they're on sale now, you could buy them now. And I'm noticing that they're on sale. You may get
They
some that
are.
are still labeled for 2024. It's not like something that expires that quickly, but you're still good with it. Just keep it dry and cool and you'll be fine with them.
Yeah, just keep it house temperature. Don't put it anywhere like out in your garage if it's unheated.
Right. Or,
Things like that.
any place that
And
gets
don't
hot.
put it in your greenhouse that's hot because it'll try to sprout. All right, next quote.
All right. The next quote is when people come up and give me a compliment, Corey, that was a good talk, or Corey, you were so brave, I take each remark as if it were a flower. At the end of each day, I lift up the bouquet of flowers I have gathered throughout the day and say, here you are, Lord. It is all yours. And that is Corey ten Boom.
Yes. And I'm telling you, I read The Hiding Place when I was 13 and loved it. And I read it again a couple of years ago. And it's worth reading again and again. Talk about an inspirational human being, but also she had her head on straight and she almost died several times. All right, on our bookshelf is another inspiring thing. It's an inspiring book. And we talked about this book when it came out under a different imprint. Was it 2020?
No, it was maybe 2022.
Okay. So there's a long story behind this book. First of all, the book is Black Flora, Inspiring Profiles of Floriculture's New Vanguard. And it's by Teresa J. Spate. And it is now being distributed. It is beautiful. The
Yes.
cover, I love the cover.
And so
Timber Press
they
picked it
put
up,
out a
right?
new edition of this book. It's brand new. It has, first of all, we should say that Terry is a friend of ours, the author. We love her dearly.
We love Terry. Yeah.
But they put out this new book, and it features profiles of contemporary Black experts innovating the world of flowers. And it says, author and longtime gardener Teresa Spate offers a beautiful intersection of flowers and community. This book is a homecoming, one that unearths the floral legacies of the past and present while providing a source of inspiration for younger generations of plant lovers seeking examples of successful Black floral artists and entrepreneurs.
Yes, and I talked about this before, but there's three of the florists are in Oklahoma City in the Arts District, and it's in downtown Oklahoma City, and it's called The Wild Mother. And so that was a cool connection too. I think this book offers a lot of inspiration for people who are flower farmers and people who arrange flowers for weddings and do all kinds of different things or just for joy. But the pictures, not to take anything away from Terry, because she wrote the book. The photographs are so beautiful and so well done.
Yes.
It's just a beautiful book.
Yes, it is a beautiful book. And the other thing it says, we should note, is that there's a new foreword to the book that's written by Aubrey Lee, another friend, and she lives in the Atlanta area, and she's a horticulturalist and garden historian. We follow Terry on Instagram, and that's where you'll mostly find her. Under Cottage in the Court is what her Instagram is. But
in her blog.
Yes. And so
website.
Terry is such a wonderful, giving person. The last post I saw from her on Instagram is she's thinking about some of the florists and gardeners featured in this book that are from North Carolina, Georgia, those areas that may have been impacted by the hurricane. And, she's trying to think about how could she help them?
Yeah, that's just her personality.
That is her personality.
Lovely person. And there are lots of lovely, beautiful faces and beautiful flowers in this book.
It is. And so I think it is a very inspirational book for anybody that is growing flowers. I think you'll find something in here for everybody. So very nice. Very nice. And that, by the way, it comes out on October the 22nd. So this episode comes out next week on the 16th. So pre-orders really help. And so if you think you're going to get this, I would go out there and pre-order it. And again, that is Black Flora, Inspiring Profiles of Floriculture's New Vanguard by Teresa J. Spate. Congratulations, Terry, on a beautiful book. Well done.
October is crisp days and cool nights, a time to curl up around the dancing flames and sink into a good book. John Sinor. So our dirt, in keeping with our creepiness, is 10 creepy plants to haunt your house this fall from Pistol's Nursery.
Yes. And so I'm looking at the page, and the number one flower for creepy is, of course, the corpse flower.
Not my favorite flower. No. Even though I know people think it's so cool.
And it blooms and it smells horrid because it's trying to attract flies, and it wants to try to imitate basically rotting flesh. It's disgusting.
It is. I've seen them. And then the second one is resurrection plant, which is Selaginella lepidophylla or phylla. Might be phylla. It droops and then it comes back, I think. I've never grown this one.
No. And then the next two, there's no picture for something called brain cactus, Mammillaria elongata cristata. I have never seen that. But the other one is those lithops, which is living stones. Those
they do creep
those
me
are
out.
creepy.
And people in England love them.
Oh, they grow them like crazy, and I've bought seeds from those. I didn't really have much luck, but I don't like them.
They look like brains, kind of.
They have a begonia on here called pink mink. I don't know why a begonia would be creepy.
Yeah, why is this one
I don't
creepy?
know.
It's an angel wing begonia. Do they have a picture of it? I don't think they do.
And then
I'm going to look it up.
They have something called the fishbone prayer plant, and I can't pronounce that botanical name.
Okay, Carol, I grow that angel wing begonia, pink mink.
Is it creepy?
I have it. No, it's not creepy at all. It's really pretty. It's red more than pink, and it's really pretty. In fact, well, wait a minute. So there's an angel wing version of the begonia that's pink mink, and then there's another begonia called pink mink that's a different style, and they're both really pretty. So I don't know what they're.
They say that
I don't
it's
think it's
the
creepy.
leaves look like what you would see on a winged reptile or supernatural creature. So if you can imagine the leaves as wings, they
Well, they are like
kind of
wings, but
stretching
I
it,
don't think they're
kind of
creepy.
stretching it.
They are really stretching it on that one. Okay, why is the prayer plant that one I grew as a kid in the 70s because it closes up its
Yeah.
leaves and opens
So
them.
its alternating stripe pattern on the leaves resembles a fish skeleton, and if you stare at it, it looks like it's moving, I guess. Onward.
Okay. Okay, now these are kind of
Yes.
creepy. The carnivorous group.
Yes. Carnivorous
The
plants.
carnivori.
Yes. 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 Yes.
I'm not big on them. I'll be honest. They kind of creep
Pitcher
me
plants
out.
creep me out. Venus flytraps, yeah. I've bought one before, like eons ago, and it never really lives very long. But they say you can keep them in your kitchen and they'll eat the fruit flies.
Okay. And then the Medusa's head, which is a Euphorbia flanangani.
I'm sorry, that's an ugly plant.
I probably not going to grow that. It looks a little bit like a spider.
It looks creepy and not fun.
With a bunch of legs. Okay, let me look up this philodendron because I'm not sure.
Philodendron Bloody Mary. This says it's gothic looking because the new leaves emerge orange and then they harden off to a blood red and finally a deep dark green. I actually think I have a philodendron that is kind of like that. It's in this.
I do too. I have orange king.
Yeah, I think they're. And then dancing bones cactus.
It's just an upright. It's an upright philodendron. Yeah. It's not that bad. Now that dancing bones cactus is cool.
That is pretty cool.
I like it.
Hatiora salicornioides. Oh, people can look up the article.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So that is our creepy dirt of the week. Go look at the article if you want to see it.
Can you think of any other creepy plants, Dee?
Well, I think the Venus flytrap is part of the carnivorous ones is pretty creepy. I've seen it. I've seen them do it, where they touch the little tines and it closes up.
I had
it's creepy.
I want to say it was a spigelia, which has really funky flower that is also smells like rotting meat, but it finally died and I was able to get rid of it. And you're holding up a plant with black leaves now.
Yeah, I have a ZZ plant that's called Raven, and it's a black ZZ plant. And no, I'm not going to pronounce the botanical name.
No.
That's why everyone calls it a ZZ plant.
That's right.
It's too hard. I mean, it starts out green and they turn black, and I really kind of love it. I think it's pretty.
Very nice.
My kids think I'm weird because I like dark plants, but I don't really care. All right.
Well, your kids think you're weird because you're their mother.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I'll do a quote. October gave a party. The leaves by hundreds came, the chestnuts, oaks, and maples, and leaves of every name. The sunshine spread a carpet, and everything was grand. Miss Weather led the dancing, Professor Wind the band. And that is by George Cooper, and it's the first stanza from the poem October's Party, which now I need to go look up and read the entire poem because of it.
It's a good poem.
Yes. Although chestnuts, so that's a sad, sad story.
Yeah, there are virtually no chestnuts, American chestnuts in Oklahoma. I mean in the U.S., not just, we don't have them in Oklahoma either. Okay, so rabbit holes. Mine is quick. I went down a rabbit hole about our dirt for next week. Another teaser.
That is a teaser. So I'm down in 2 rabbit holes. The first one is my family history, and I am transcribing a 20-page single-space typed document that my grandmother wrote in 1970 with family history, discovering all kinds of stuff that if I read this when I was a teenager, I'd forgotten. And I keep having to stop myself from going and looking up, where's that? Where's that? All these different places, and quite interesting to think about some of my relatives. Some of them, are like distant relatives because they're like, but right. Anyway, it is very interesting. But rabbit hole number 2 is I'm looking for lost ladies of garden writing in Indiana because someone had asked me if I'd ever found any. And it's like, not really. So I start searching through newspapers.com for, like in
Mhm.
the Indianapolis Star, the Indianapolis Times, the Indianapolis News. I do searches for like garden editor and things like that. And fascinating. There was one, I think it was 1939 even. They were asking,
Yeah.
if you would like to sign up your vacant lot to be used as a victory garden. So I thought that was interesting.
So they were already thinking about it
Yeah.
before the war started
I
over
think I'll
here.
have to go back to check my notes. But the interesting thing is, I found a woman who wrote a series of 9 articles about various gardens in Indianapolis, rich people's gardens. And I looked her up,
Uh-huh.
and she taught high school where my mom went to high school. And so I think she was my mom's high school English teacher, or could have been. And
Crazy.
she just wrote these 9 articles. So I researched her because she had the kind of name that it's like, if you find her, you've probably found her. Because her first name is Zila, Zila.
Huh.
And so
Interesting.
now I got to, text my sister. I'm trying to wait till she gets home from work. Do you have mom's 1947 yearbook? Because I needs it. I need you to look up to see if this teacher is in there, because that was the year she
Yeah.
retired. So
Huh.
I read about
Interesting.
her. And so, but it's just those 9 articles about old gardens or
Um,
gardens.
which you'll probably have. Who's that famous landscaper that we
Jens
went to see?
Jensen.
He likes to, yeah,
Well,
Jens
I got to read
Jensen.
all 9
We saw
articles.
some of his stuff.
I did find a little
I bet
article.
he's in
I
there.
found an article where in, I think, 1920, she went to Amherst College for the summer to study garden landscape. So she was into it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I bet she wrote more stuff other
I cannot
places.
find it if she did, but I shall keep
Huh.
looking. But there are 9 articles, and I'm going to read each one about these gardens. I won't, if I write about her, I won't put the addresses in the article in the Substack, because people are probably still living there. But I'm going to go look them up and see what they look like today.
Yeah.
That
Cool.
ought to keep me
I
busy
like
and
it.
off the streets for a while.
As if you need that. So, garden commissions, I'll share mine. I'm going to keep moving things in the greenhouse, take a few cuttings. Last year, I didn't do any cuttings of coleus because they get mealybugs, but I may take a few of my favorites this year because I had trouble finding certain ones. And I have one in particular that I really like that was a big, strong grower. So I might take it in. And then I did buy some more rooting hormone for harder to root things. I need to be careful of it though. It's Clonex gel. So I'll probably wear a mask as I root things because the word gel sometimes means
It
gelatin or
does.
carrageenan.
Yes.
And so I need to think about that. I bought it before I thought about it. And then I'm going to cut back the rest of the pelargoniums that are going in the greenhouse. They're already in there, most of them. And I'm going to cut them back because they need to be like when you take stuff in the greenhouse, you're anticipating shorter days. So you don't want all that foliage.
Right.
So I cut everybody back. And so I'm going to do that. Replant anything that needs it. I do have a euphorbia that I bought from Steve at Bustani year before last, and it's outgrown its pot. I forgot to mention that I did repot my giant jasmine.
Yes.
I think it's a
I saw
winter
the
jasmine.
story about that.
Yeah, because the deal broke. And so I bought a new pot for it and repotted it. And I think that's it.
So my pelargoniums are still sitting outside. I want them to start to harden off a little bit more, a few more cold nights before I throw them in the garage. But I'm going to keep doing my cleanup. And even though the bulbs are coming, I'm not going to plant them yet. I do have some seedlings
No.
of like hollyhocks, delphiniums, foxglove. I ended up with like 3 or 4 seedlings of each. So I've got a spot or 2. I'm going to put those in where I can keep an eye on them, kind of keep them watered. And hopefully they'll make it through until spring. But it's all a grand experiment. Got to keep an eye on my cuttings, keep an eye on my poinsettia.
Grand experiment could apply to all gardening. It's just a grand experiment.
Yeah, I did. By the way, I admire you. You wrote a very helpful zinnia post. The Garden Fairies posted on my blog this past week. And, when they post, it's just,
You also do updates every week. I mean, I haven't posted on my blog in
yeah,
forever. For one thing, Katie and I moved my blog from one hosting domain service, not hosting service, domain service to another one. So it was down for about a week. And I doubt if anybody even noticed, but it doesn't matter. Yeah. Just trying to, keep plugging along.
plugging along.
That would be what we're doing. I'm really glad it's October. I'm done with gardening for the year, really.
I'm going to wrap this up because we're done with this episode too. Thank you for listening to The Garden Angelus. I hope you've hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. We publish every week on Wednesdays at 12 a.m. Eastern Time.
And if you subscribe to our Substack newsletter, which is free, you'll get a link to listen to the podcast an entire day early.
And if you want to help support us, use those affiliate links. If you buy something after clicking through on them, we're in a small commission and it costs you nothing.
Or you can set up a monthly subscription through Buzzsprout, or you can make a one-time donation through PayPal.
And we thank everyone who has already done that. It helps us pay for the podcast hosting.
It was lovely to chat with all of you over the garden gate. Bye until next week.
Bye, everybody.